hello. Welcome to Inside the Holman Cab. Quick notes on housekeeping. We are recording this session. We'll send it to you afterwards. Type your questions in the Q&A box and also definitely engage in the chat. Very briefly about Ignite, the only thing we are focused on is helping B2B companies manage, design, and facilitate customer and partner advisory boards. So I'm very excited today. We have the Holman Cab leaders here, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Denise. Go ahead.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here with everyone today. My name's Denise Wildish, and I oversee Holman's customer experience and business transformation execution teams. Glad to be here with you. Peter, over to
Thanks.
you.
I manage our industry relations function, and chief amongst our relations, of course, are our customers and the partnerships that we develop with them. I've been working in concert with Denise on managing our client advisory board since its inception, but you'll hear a little bit more about our journey as we move forward. Thanks again.
Perfect. I'm going to stop the share so you can go ahead and share, Peter.
Absolutely. Let's see if I get this one right. Okay, there we go. All right, this will bring us to really, well, we know why we're here. We're sharing our journey and our client advisory board. I'll take a few moments just to talk about who Holman is. We're not a household name in all markets, so I want to share a little bit about who we are and what we do. We are a 100-year-old, as of 2024, automotive services company. And really what that means is that we support the automotive industry in a number of ways. Not as an OE, but we do automotive retailing with 60 brands, 60 dealerships we call it, representing 9 states, 30 plus brands. We're the 15th largest dealership group in the United States. And we sell anything from a Mini to a Bugatti. In case you're in the market for a Bugatti, you can put that in the chat. We are, of course, a 100-year-old business. We're privately held. We continue to be family owned, and we are a WeBank certified business. What that means is a women-owned enterprise, and we're proud of that distinction. We do other automotive related businesses, but chief among this is our largest business segment is fleet management. And that is, of course, a B2B enterprise. We manage vehicles for companies, for corporations, whether they be a sales vehicle or a Comcast service vehicle. And we do what that really entails is anything you do for your own car. You buy it, you finance it, you fill it with gas, you fix it when it needs repair or collision. And then we do that times 2 million vehicles across Canada, United States, Mexico, UK, and Germany. And that's really the focus of our talk here today, because those as I say, that is our largest business segment, and the top tier of those customers are really our cab focus, and that's who we address, and we seek and solicit feedback from them. So I got to toss it to Denise. She's going to give us a little bit of context of where the cab fits into our overall strategy in this engagement. So,
Yeah, great. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, our Voice of the Customer program is quite robust at Holman. We have surveys and forums, tech talks. We actively listen in a number of different ways, really to help inform our business leaders and our tech leaders. But the CAB is really the pinnacle of our Voice of the Customer programming, and I think it's fair to say that it carries the loudest voice. That's in large part because our CAB is comprised of senior decision makers from some of our largest, most notable customers. So within the walls of Holman, it carries the weight of the customer name behind it as well. If we pull up a little bit, the CAB is a really important part of a larger, more comprehensive customer experience discipline we have at Holman, which is guided by what we call the Holman experience. And that's really shared language and behaviors that guide how we want to show up for our customers and for each other in all of the different interactions that we have. But more importantly, how we want our customers to experience our brand when they engage with any one of our businesses. So we work really hard to drive that customer-centric culture and a real deliberate effort to embed our CAB feedback into our B2B business operations and overall experience design. And I think the interesting part of that is that it's created just an increased demand from our business leaders for deeper customer insights. If we flash back a little bit, we actually started our CAB in earnest back in 2017. Peter and I started that endeavor. And we look to our advisory board as really as trusted advisors and partners to Holman who collaborate and co-create with us as we work to modernize our processes and design new experiences. And they provide us guidance, they provide us feedback on all of our strategic priorities, the investments that we are looking to make, and anything that ultimately will enhance the service delivery and value back to them. So we look for them to play a role in that. All roads really need to roll back to our customers so that they feel like they're a big part of it. And they've played a really big part in our new product development, our market development efforts. So I think we actually have a pool here. It's taken us a while to get there. It's been a long journey, but I think we have a pool here just to see where you're at on your journey.
So you should see a poll on your screen. Where is your CAP program in its maturity journey?
Maybe I'll share our journey and then we can tap back to the poll for results, and I'll cue that for you, Tatiana, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So as Denise said, it was a long journey that we went through, and frankly, it took a bit of time to sell into the organization the value of what we wanted to achieve here. We went to our leadership and said, this is important. We had success previously with ad hoc focus groups sessions, and we had developed some learnings on that. But almost a decade ago, we saw the need to formalize and elevate those efforts. Again, we went to the business and said, this is something we should do. It's best practice. And there was a perception, I'll be honest with you and candid, that, well, we really don't need this. We're close to our customers. And maybe people were territorial or they saw it as potential failing. And, we know what our customers want from us. If we listen to them, they'll tell us to build a faster horse versus, a different fleet vehicle, for example. But we were ultimately successful in that endeavor. And I think it's proven its mettle over the years. But part of that selling in process, and it will be interesting to see where people are in the poll to see if anyone's just launching. Part of that is coming really, really organized and talking about the structured nature of what we're trying to achieve here. So I think you'll get more success in getting buy-in on that. We really stressed that the advisory function, it wasn't a forum, it wasn't a complaint session, it was structured and organized, and it was to elicit feedback. And that was really the difference, I think. We had our first meeting in 2018. We added mid-year calls because they wanted to add a little bit more of a touch point. We did a hybrid meeting. Probably a lot of people will understand and commiserate with this. We did a hybrid meeting in January 2021. That was really hard, really, really hard to do. People in the room for a day and a half, as well as people online. I felt for the people online. I felt for Denise and myself, frankly, to try to execute on that. But I'm sure we're not alone on that. In 2023, we fully integrated our efforts with the larger client experience and voice of the customer program, as Denise shared. And we added in 2023 as well, fleet leader forums. Ours is essentially executive cab, and we knew that we had people much more practitioner level who we needed their voice as well. But we didn't want to cross the groups. They didn't want to have cross conversations. So we added that component, not a standing board, but more ad hoc councils that come and meet. And, we listened to our cab and they told us they wanted more time together. We didn't really know what that necessarily meant. We didn't think they want to spend 3 days together, as engaging as it may be. But what they did want is a mid-year meeting that would replace the mid-year call. And so we implemented that last year. We're doing that again this year. And then in 2026, we will be doing more on the forum side, but really vertical specific roundtables to release that. That's really the value. A lot of value of the cab for them is to share and hear from their peers. And so we want to expand that as well. So let's look at these polls. We're evaluating. Oh, great. So 18. I hope you come to the right place, and I hope we can be helpful in that discussion. Because any question you've had, we've had. I believe, and of course, Tatiana and the Ignite team have been supportive of us in answering those questions, evolving and established. That's where we were relatively recently, and I think, I don't know if it was the pandemic or it was just that sort of midlife crisis for a cab. We really, probably about a year and a half ago, really had a goal internally, Denise and I, to make this fresh. And how do we keep the engagement and how do we keep the momentum? Because our feeling was, and maybe we were wrong, there was a risk of getting stale. So I think this is pretty exciting, and that'll help us and inform the future conversations. Thanks for that. And I'll throw it back to Denise for her section.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Peter. It's having the right support and alignment for your cab is critical. And I think we're fortunate in how we're positioned at Holman, in that being a part of customer experience and our business transformation at Holman, our cab programming is part of our team's mandate. And we take that customer voice right into how we shape the priorities. So it helps to naturally form a closed loop process for us. But I think bigger than, what Peter and I are doing, and while I'm technically the official executive sponsor, we really see executive sponsorship far beyond me. We focus on attaining and really maintaining the executive sponsorship at the highest levels in our organization. So our executive leadership, our presidents, our EVPs of service and operations, they actually sit in the room for the entirety of our cab sessions to hear the feedback firsthand. And there's a lot of benefits to this. The first being that it demonstrates to our customers just how committed we are in hearing their feedback, that our executives are in the room. If we're asking for them to take the time to be with us, then we have to show that we're equally invested. We also know that it's a big ask of our own executives to give up their time, really a day and a half. And after every session, they always tell us that they're glad that they did it. Sometimes they will walk into it feeling like, oh, I don't know if I have enough time to give, but they're always glad that they did it. They get the unfiltered feedback directly from our customers, and it helps to really keep them close to how the customer is thinking of Holman and how they're defining value from us. So that's important for our executives to have that perspective. We are just naturally a very customer-focused business, so it's not that hard for us to get agreement for our executives or any of our leadership to be present, but we do want to make sure that it is a good use of their time. So we really focus on how we can build relationships at all levels within our customers. And this is a really effective way to do it. And it's a good way to sell it to your executives. So they get 8 to 12 customers, really top end customers, as a captive audience for a day and a half. So that saves them from flying around to meet different customers and have individual meetings. It gives them the opportunity to really connect much more deeply over this day and a half together. And because this is an executive level board, as Peter mentioned, our members really play more of an advisory role instead of, a typical issue-based client meeting. So that helps maintain the interest of our executive team as well. We also have other leaders that are always wanting to be in the room and certainly be a part of it. And we try to be as inclusive as possible, but we can't have everybody in there. So we'll often invite other leaders in as sponsors of sessions where they can help either facilitate or really sponsor a particular session that we may be hosting within the board meeting, or join us for an advisory board lunch or dinner where they have the opportunity to really connect with the customers directly as well. And certainly, I think being in the room, seeing everything firsthand for our executive teams helps Peter and I not have to convince them as to the value that the board brings. They see it firsthand, and that really helps us get the budget that we need to host the 2 meetings a year that we've shared. And I would say that it can be hard to articulate, but our customers just actually feeling and being with Holman and experiencing our culture and spending time with our executive team really humanizes the company and creates a really high level of trust and camaraderie, and demonstrates Holman's commitment and investment on our part, which our customers feel, and they recognize that it is a significant investment on our part, and they'll often make comments about that as well.
Yeah, and thank you for the question, Marina. So Denise did share having the business owner sit in the room. helps, I think, demonstrate the ROI, but we'll share a little bit of successes in that regard later, further down the session. So we're going to talk about one of our, I don't want to say perennial challenges, but one thing that we, well, our frankly perennial challenge with is getting good, new, engaged members. And we don't sit in the business in the client relations department. We sit in a different area, which we can get into later. That adds credibility to our CAB work. But that means we don't always get to see who might be a good candidate for the CAB. So we really rely on our stakeholders and our partners within the business to do that. And we have an intensive and really comprehensive effort and to try to reach out and say, okay, who's a good candidate? And as you know, those of you who are more mature, it's a matter of the client. By that I mean the organization, the customer, but as much as it's a matter of the personality and of the function. You want people who are able to engage with each other, not necessarily at the title level, but at the responsibility level and at the understanding level. And that's something you want to do, because one person unwittingly, and nothing against anybody, this is a recruitment problem if it happens, can bring down the conversation if they're not at the same level. So we certainly look for ownership roles. We look for key accounts, clearly, like anybody would. We look for a geographic mix. We operate in Canada, and we have been underrepresented in that area. So we try to work a little bit harder in that regard. The scale is different, so we had to change our criteria a little bit. We look for folks who are sharp, who are just going to challenge and ideate and are going to connect with that room. And fitting with that room is so critical, because we think our success is built on, yes, programming and planning, but on the camaraderie and the collegiality that's built in the room, and that can be challenged. So what we don't look for, and we have people, and they have their I understand why they want to do it. We don't let our salespeople, put up a cab seat as an inducement to sign business. We don't want, really at-risk customers to come to the cab as a way to get them to stick with us. That is not the place for those sorts of discussions. And we don't necessarily look for people who are so uncritical that they won't really add any real value to the discussion. As we always talk about it, it's a client advisory board. There's two functions, the client and the advisor. We lean more in on the advisor. So we still struggle with this. We want to keep it fresh. We have terms. We've rolled over terms if a customer is good. I know that other folks don't do that, but if they continue to deliver, we have no problem extending the terms. But we decided this year we have to keep going back to that business almost in person. You don't rely on an email. Let's have a meeting. Let's hammer out who's good. Let's go name by name and hammer out who's good. So that's something we are getting better at, but we always want to keep a pipeline, just like a sales pipeline. So.
And then once we have them, certainly, keeping them engaged and deepening the relationship and the connection is an important part of it. So we ask our members for feedback after every session. So we do a formal survey with them actually in the room, but, just by the nature of how we connect with them over the course of the couple of days that we're together, they willingly offer thoughts and opinions freely afterwards anyways. But I think one of the best things that, we can hear from our members is that our CAB is very effective for them. They feel like they're invited into a special club and they really like being a part of it. We give them a peek behind the curtain. We host, executive roundtables, so they have full access to our executives, and that gives them the ability to really feel like they're a deeper part of our organization. They also have access to each other, and that's a really, really important part. They place a high degree of value in the ability to connect with one another. So a lot of our members have made really strong professional connections that extend outside of our meetings, and things that Peter and I don't always know about until we, hear conversation between them when we're all back together again. Often they're calling each other for advice. They site visit, they go to each other's sites to visit each other's facilities. And we work hard too to make a deeper, more relationship-based connection. So a couple of our CAB members' spouses have actually become friends, and some of them travel together as couples. And it's really cool to see like that level of connection amongst our board members who otherwise wouldn't have connected if we hadn't brought them together in the advisory board session. We do work really hard to create that connection, make them feel like they are a part of something. Our executive team, as I mentioned, is a really big part of that. They're very down to earth and they make it comfortable in the room. They don't make it awkward, and I think that's a really important thing. Peter and I work hard at having some pre-sessions with our executives to make sure that they know when to just sit back and listen and not take over the room, and so they do create a very comfortable space there for it for all of our members. Peter also mentioned that he and I have been hosting this session since the very beginning, and that consistency brings a level of trust and continuity for our members as well. And we heard the coolest quote from one of our newer members, and they said, you've created more than a board, you have created a club where we feel really welcome. And so that just helps to drive that retention of our members. You want them to feel like they're a part of something special and that they're making a difference. So we lean really heavily into the hospitality sessions. We host dinners. At those dinners, we do invite spouses to attend those dinners. So it becomes more social than just business related, allows us to, build a level of trust, get to know each other outside of our professional roles. We can laugh, we can have fun, and then we can carry that into the room the next day. We also try to ensure that our members have, an overall experience when they're together. And Peter will get into this a little bit more, but the mid-year session that we have coming up in May, we're going to host a PGA hospitality suite the day after the meeting. So adding those experiences just also helps to drive attendance and engagement, where it's an opportunity for them to spend more time together and really learn more from each other as much as they're learning from Holman.
Excellent. So I think we'll launch our next poll. It's really to talk about what challenges that the team here is feeling with their CAB journey. And while you throw that up, Tatiana, what I'll do is address the comment that just came in, and then we can go back to the poll results. And it was really about advocacy. We don't have I wouldn't say we have a robust client advocacy cycle, but we do. I'll get into this more. We do and this is, Ignite's going to tell you this is not the right thing to do, and I think that's fine. I respect what they have to say, but it's the right thing for us. And so we do our CAB meeting right in advance of our client user conference. And so what we do is because we develop these relationships, and we've had our CAB members very, very often, almost every year, they have done a session, a customer panel. They've done one almost in totality. We called it, selling into the C-suite. How do you elevate fleet? Which is not, it's a very expensive enterprise if you think 15,000 vehicles, but it's not top of mind in this fleet suite. We're under no illusion that that's the case. But we had a conversation, and our CAB members helped lead it. In fact, they led it on how to do that and how to sell that conversation. So our user conference is probably the main area where we engage in advocacy. We haven't done too many case studies from the CAB, maybe within the CAB companies, but the members themselves not as much. It's more at our conference. So why don't we see the results of these polls? All right, securing internal alignment, great. Finally, right. Oh, it's pretty much a split. This is so familiar. This is everything we do. Everything we do. Maybe not the ROI. We're a little fortunate of that, but everything else, the top above that, we have been there. So hopefully we can share, and feel free. And Tatiana, you can share on LinkedIn to reach out to us after the fact, because we're happy to answer those questions. But hopefully we can do those today. And I'll get on to our next area, which is really how do we drive engagement at these meetings. We're not a tech company. I know a lot of cabs and a lot of folks on these webinars tend to be tech. So we don't have a roadmap that needs to be validated and vetted every year. We do have some product size, but not quite as much on some of you folks who work in the tech space. But we do have product and service and strategy. So we lean into that, but we don't want to keep going to the same well and then have them, they're all very polite, but we don't want them to think, I just told you this, right? So we want to make sure that the agendas are fresh. And so everywhere we go, we're like, well, Denise more so than myself, she's like a reporter. She has a notepad of where she's in an internal meeting. She's like, that would be a good CAB session. And she'll write that down, and then we collect them and iterate on that. Prior to putting out a general clarion call for CAB content sessions, not a lot. So yeah, we had to take a different approach and be much more deliberate and poke at people and right in the session. I think the customer, the advisory board would want to weigh on this. Yeah, they actually would. So that's why we kind of do it. We do one-on-one interviews, member interviews, and in advance of the meeting to help vet and validate our agenda. We have learned things. There was a regulatory issue in California where these big trucks were going to have to be electrified. It was a very, very challenging thing for the industry. And our members said, this is a challenge. We need to understand what everyone else is doing. And so we shifted the agenda, not at the last minute, but we shifted the agenda a couple months out, and we brought in a lobbyist to talk about how navigating the regulatory environment in that particular area based on our clients saying they needed more information. Our members rather needed more information. And we go to the business directly, not saying, hey, what would you like to talk about? What are the top questions or top challenges that your client base is telling you? Because then we can take insights and derive insights from that and build sessions from that. Around facilitation, we talked about the where in CX and not in the actual business. We have a separate function, and that allows us to be a little bit more credible. And we have a third-party facilitator, so it imparts that neutrality and makes it more of a feedback session versus a traditional client session. We do every meeting. We have an executive roundtable. We said that our executives, our company presidents, sit in the meetings, but we also give them 35 to 45 minutes just to talk about what they're hearing, and it's back and forth. And it's not really structured, but our customers love it, our members love it, because they have the top and they have an engaging conversation. We've leaned into small groups, even though we don't have a large cab, but we think that they enjoy connecting with other. They may share something and 2 or 3 people, what they wouldn't share at 15 people. And, I wasn't sure, I have to be honest with you, I was a little skeptical of some of these creative formats that I see at the CAB user conference. They love it. I thought they were a little cheesy, a little hokey, but I think if you sit in a room for 8 hours and hear the same thing, it can be nice, and it can be a little bit liberating. Get up and stretch and do exercises that might seem a little silly on paper, but when they're executed, they work great. So, and then we try to make every session a win-win. Yes, we want things from them, but we try to deliver things to them as well. So that's how we do it on the meeting side. So, and this is the follow-up.
Yeah, following up, from those meetings, we do create formal meeting reports. They're comprehensive. We try to keep them tight. We keep them very visual, which helps prompt, memory of the sessions. We include charts and illustrations. The last couple of years, we've had a graphic artist in the room for a couple of the sessions, creating a memorial of them. You can see, a picture of that on the slide here. We also, this past year, had a photographer come into the room and just take some shots. The most impactful thing, though, are sound bites. So we compile a list of really impactful member statements. Often they have a way of just really summarizing a session in a statement, and they don't even realize that they're doing it. So Peter and I are always trying to write down those quotes as they come up during the sessions, and that really helps to memorialize really what was the heart of what the customer was telling us. We also report back to our members within a month. So we try to get this report out pretty quickly, keep it visually appealing and certainly easy to read and digest. There's a lot of work beyond just hosting the session. There's a lot to integrate back into the business as well. And that's where our CX team comes back into play. So we use our CX business partners to ensure that our operational leaders have and really understand all of the feedback that has come back from the advisory board, but probably more importantly, confirm how they are weaving that feedback into their priorities. And certainly Peter and I feel a very big sense of pride and success when we hear phrases repeated out in the business just randomly. Months later, we'll hear a quote from the advisory board that somebody took from the meeting report, and we're like, okay, so this voice is really resonating and it's making an impact in how our business leaders are operating and incorporating it into their action planning. It's also a really important part of our process is closing the loop with our customers as well. We open every single CAB session with CAB feedback and action. We always want to report back to them, even if it is something that we can't or won't do. We take the key takeaways from the previous meeting. We give them an update on where we're at with progress or how we've incorporated their feedback and why we may choose not to do something. And that honesty and transparency is really appreciated. Our members have told us that that is a differentiator for our CAB. They often don't get that from other advisory boards. So it lends a ton of credibility and engagement. We're certainly getting better at tightening up, our follow-ups within the business and holding our own leadership accountable for the member feedback. But we're making some great progress there. As far as measuring, the business impact and the success, it is difficult to do that. But we do know that our board has saved us a lot of time, money, and wasted energy not exploring business opportunities or product offerings where they don't make sense. They will often validate assumptions that we have, and we'll use them to help us blueprint new initiatives and new products. We do hear from our leaders, referring to the CAB, and the CAB said this, and it's a great endorsement and gives credence and weight, certainly organizational credibility to the value of the CAB. But I think one of the biggest achievements that we have had to date is a standing session that we have every time with our product team. They come in and they give a number of different updates, but really more seeking feedback around new markets or new products that we're looking to move towards. And in 2022, our product development team brought in a number of different options. And our customers told us in a lot of spaces, no, you shouldn't go there. That's not something that we would invest with Holman in. We think that there's other players in the market who are just going to be better at this than you. But they did tell us to go in one particular direction, and it was a green light and endorsement for a new business opportunity. So we're really excited that last fall, Holman launched a brand new business called Holman Robotics, and that was really cool to see that from a 100-year-old company like Holman. And it's a brand new business that's focused on financing and managing robotic assets, not just for potentially fleet customers, but another customer base. And the CAB validation was absolutely key to advancing that business case. So that's probably the biggest tangible outcome that we have had from our advisory board to date.
I see a bunch of questions that come into the chat. I'm happy to stick around and knock them out at the end. I want to knock through a few slides, and I'm happy to stay on a little bit later. They were more about execution, and I'll pick up the pace a little bit around this. Denise covered this, the validation that we have, the CAB says carries weight. We create, of course, relationships. And we steered our products. Oh, actually, you covered this slide. I didn't click. My apologies, Denise. Yeah,
yep.
That was my job. I was listening to you, and I missed two slides. Here is our robotic launch in November. There is our ghost robot dog, and it patrols. Where when you have a vehicles like at a dealership, and it can track them. It's a watchdog, but it reports back. So it's kind of cool, and that's our new business. I'll be better on the clicking. All right, where are we? So here's our top advice. This is what we wanted to really share with folks. This is what we kind of learned here. Our top rules. So really follow the best practices. They're there for a reason. Don't try to reinvent it. Years and years ago, we went on Ignite training. They gave us this big book, and people would ask to borrow it. We wouldn't lend it because we wouldn't get it back. That's how valuable we viewed those best practices. Enforce the 80-20 rule, and that it means you should be hearing from your members 80% of the time, and that you should be kind of setting the context and answering questions 20% of the time. Reinforce this in your prep, and enforce it if you have to in the session. And if the facilitator or even my Denise or myself have to say, actually, I'm going to hear. I think that one of our members has a question, we're going to go to them. And fortunately, we have an organization that's pretty genial. If our company president hears us, he knows that, okay, I've probably been talking too much. So, but enforce it, because it's not a client. People will, if they don't know the experience, they think it's a client meeting where you go back and forth and answer questions. That's not what this is. It's an exploratory exercise. We maintain a strict 3-to-1 ratio. We want 3 members to 1 Holman person. We leave the session owners outside of that. We think, again, it skews way too much into a traditional client meeting. If it gets to 50-50, we don't like it. There are very few leaders who say, I won't say a word, who actually can't have the ability to sit in a room all day and not say a word. So, and the fact that we have our company leadership in there is helpful. We'll say, Bob's covering that, or Pete's covering that, or they'll come and say to that, I need one of my folks in here. Great, who would you like us to remove? Because we're maintaining this ratio. And we've established that credibility over the years, but it's a tough one. I know people probably feel it isn't. Really making the feedback easy. So we will offer debriefs, and we'll try to share it to our folks. We'll share how it impacts their employees and their departments. That's why we want a highly visual report, and we like to truncate things that are directional to the actual function in the business to make it easier for them. We've done Denise's team did a 1-page CX summary that they can pin on their desk. Here's what our customers are saying this year. So that's one way we are doing it. Do what works with your CAB. I talked about this. We do it in advance of our user conference. Our members now expect it. They say, you have this week. Give me a year, 8 months notice. This is your week. Don't bring me back and forth. There's also economies of scale. We talked about the sketch artist and the professional photographer. We wouldn't be able to, frankly, afford that for just the CAB meeting. But because we tack it on to the user conference, we have all those extra resources there to elevate the experience for them. It's a strong recruiting signal. If they come to our user conference year over year, they're going to come and be engaged in our CAB. At least that's been of our experience. We don't overwork them. And I know Tatiana's commented on that a lot. We keep the meetings tight. You're only getting so much out of the well. You can keep throwing the bucket down. They're done. They are done by 1:45 on the second day. That is just the way it is. So we bring them in the day. For one day, we start kind of late on that day, let them travel in. We do some ice breaking so they get to know each other. We have a really social dinner, and we do some heavy lifting in the morning. And then by noon, frankly, most of our work is done. We go to the executive summary in the afternoon, and we ease them to the user conference. You're only getting so much. They're sick of talking about it if you try to do over 2 days of it. It's just the way it is. We're sick of it. So, it's just kind of that's just anyone who's been to a conference knows what we're talking about. Give the new members space. It takes a while to come in, especially as a really established board, and they're carrying on because we've built that collegial sense. They're joking, and the new person's like, whoa, where do I fit in? It takes a while, and then they get there. But don't just give them a little bit of space and help them along the way. Be flexible. I said follow the rules, but I also mean to be flexible. We have added that second member because our second meeting because our members have asked for it. And then internally, keep promoting the CAB. Everywhere you go in internal meetings, promote the value of it, promote the recruitment, ask for sessions, keep promoting it. Anytime we have an opportunity to share, we do manager all calls for all of our businesses. Denise and I will probably touch base with them once or twice a year. We'll go into smaller groups and share the insights. So that's our main sort of goals on that. So happy to take questions. Denise, I don't know if you want to kind of fill up anything. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it all really well, Peter.
I picked up the pace towards the end, so I hope I didn't speak too quickly.
Yeah, got through it.
You did, definitely. So we've got 5 minutes. Wow.
Let's knock through these questions. How about we do that? Perfect. The graphic artist comes from a specific company. We use Sketch Effect. There are a bunch of them who do it. You can Google them. They have packages. In general, these things run from about $7,000 to $10,000. The sound bites, they're not attributed, but they are specific quotes. They're not attributed. We do them a summary of sound bites on the front executive page, and we'll use them in the specific sessions. How do we get the business leaders to review them? They seem to do a good job of it. We keep it tight. We keep it highly visual. People will reply back when I send it out. Thanks for the information. That's good. They may have a follow-up question. So they treat it pretty seriously. I think you don't want, but I think you have to give them a package that's digestible.
And what I'd add to that, Peter, is the follow-up, right? Like we do have our CX team following up and having more individual conversations around it with each leader.
Yeah, and then 3-to-1. We've heard 2-to-1. Do you have a lower? We try to keep it at 3-to-1. That's our goal. Knight says 2-to-1. I think it works for us because, frankly, with one of these ones, if you're not very, very rigid on it, it just grows out. It just kind of grows. Maybe it skews, 2.5 to 1 in our case. Sometimes, I'm not saying it's a set rule, but if we start at 2, we'll end up more. We'll get closer to 1 to 1. So we kind of skew a little bit on the higher side on that.
And I think it makes our customers more comfortable too,
Yeah.
to not have so many Holman people in the room.
What are the examples that we discussed? So, we talk about sort of future state things, digitization of the experience. So we manage fleets, and all of our company clients have drivers, and they have an app that we do. So it's the user experience on the app, or what might that look like when they go and get their oil change? Can they rate the vendor for like they do their Uber rating? So that's one of them. Strategy one. We're a niche business, and there's not many companies that do it as our scale. So we have value with our data. How would they want to see our data being used? Would they invest in us using that to provide more consultative solutions to them as a consultative practice almost? So there are things that we kind of go into that. I'm just thinking more recently. We definitely did the regulatory one around the event, what they call the EV rules that were all in flux. So it's really about us. It's about the industry. It's about the service offering. It's about future state. Denise shared about product as well. Denise, anything else we cover in topics?
No, yeah, I think that's a good sampling.
Yeah.
Yes, technically I'm the executive sponsor, but as I mentioned, we do look to ensure that we have really our president and EVPs as co-sponsors of this.
Yeah, we do. We consult because I support the user conference as well on things like the PGA. We work with our events and our marketing team to do it. They said, "Hey, we have an idea." We got wind that they wanted to do just the general PGAs near our head office this year. I said, "We want a cab day," and they're like, "Perfect." So we keep close to the business in that regard. That's how we executed on those events. So,
Peter, we're almost at time, so maybe
yep.
pick one more question.
What's the top value customers report receiving from the program? Honestly, I'd love to say it was us. They do feel value in driving the direction of the organization, but I would say the close second is the value to connect with their peers and to address common industry challenges. And as Denise said, connect with their peers even outside of our formalized CAB structure. They'll go to site inspections and visits. Denise, what do you think the top value is?
Yeah, I think it's their connections. Yeah. And that just really brings them closer to Holman.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Denise and Peter. This has been incredibly valuable. Thank you everyone for attending. There's lots of questions we couldn't get to, but thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.